Welcome to Winston's cellar. Relax, listen, enjoy.
The Cyber Cafe. In Chinatown, there's this cyber cafe in the same building as the Kingfisher. It's small and cheap and old. The walls are still decorated with Diablo 2 and Quake boxes. The computers are a bit behind too, but that's not really what the patrons go there for. Go in, buy some time, and load up Heart of Wit. It's an Asian MMO. The kind with graphics that look like Gaia Online. Make a free account and wander into the City of Wit. The City of Wit will be inhabited by a half-dozen players, all of whom will be talking in what looks like Asian script of some kind, but is actually hyper-stylized English. After your eyes adjust, you'll realize that the player character names are the names of people you know in your everyday life. Most will ignore you, but occasionally they'll give you quests or challenge you to a duel. The quests are simple. Kill 5 dragon hatchlings, and we'll give you a gold ingot, that kind of thing. Whatever you do, never accept a challenge to duel and always do the quests. Names aren't the only things that cross over between the game and reality.
On closing mirrors. Hey Sandy, we miss you down at the Coven. Matt said you wanted me to write up the mirror thing. Ingredients: 1/2 cup flour, about an ounce of milkweed, the wings of a monarch butterfly. Grind the ingredients together in a stone bowl until they form a fine powder. Pour the powder on the mirror you want to close and light it with a wooden match. The mixture closes about 1/2 square foot of mirror. You'll have to use more for larger surfaces. Matt said you wanted to know if it only works in Calgary. I don't know if it's the city itself or just the elevation. Sorry. Jess P.
The funeral parlor. Most of the city's funeral parlors belong to one company, but a handful of allegedly independent firms survive. In reality, all of the city's funeral parlors are owned by big business in some way or other, including a small, somber brick building in the deep southeast. This particular funeral parlor has allegedly been closed for years, but lights can be seen in the windows at night, giving credence to the story that it's haunted. It isn't. What's going on inside is far stranger. In order to gain admittance, you will have to wear traditional funeral attire, black and subdued rather than anything flashy or informal. Bringing flowers is said to help. When you're admitted, whatever you do not sign the book, or you will find that the exit is barred for you. Instead, offer your condolences to the mourners, who seem to be a collection of people of all ages and races, most of whom are wearing old, worn suits or patched dresses. The funeral repeats itself every night at 8. If you come at any other time, you will be required to wait in the main hall while the staff prepare. During the ceremony itself, never volunteer to speak and never view the body. Both would draw too much of the deceased's attention. Instead, listen with rapt attention to the eulogy, as it is a valued component of the secret history. Leave before the funeral is done, and just like in those old Greek stories, never eat anything anyone offers you.
The silverware set. There is an old abandoned house by the Curry Barracks. Something about the architecture, furnishings, and decor suggests grandmotherliness in some vague sense. Through the dirty windows, you will be able to make out that everything is covered by a thick layer of dust. The back door is usually unlocked. Enter it at night, but bring a flashlight with you as the house has not had power in years. Make your way forward through the kitchen and into the house's small dining room. Around the table, you will see 5 mummified corpses, still dressed the same way they were that day in 1992, when a visit to Grandma's took a turn for the worse. On the table will be a wooden tray with a sheet of green velvet laid across it, and across that the remains of a strange silverware set. The design seems almost nautical, taking inspiration from conch shells and other ocean forms. The tray and the silverware on it will be the only thing in the house untouched by dust. Take a piece and slip it into your pocket. For as long as you carry it, your body will slowly grow more and more decayed and aged, but you will never suffer from any of age's debilitating ravages.
The beach. There is a beach within the city. To find it, step into any elevator and go to the top floor. Press every button in ascending order, including the close and open door buttons. Instead of opening onto the next highest floor, the elevator will open into a small cottage. The door of the vacant cottage will open onto the beach. The beach is warm and apparently temperate, shockingly beautiful at every hour. But blood and some sticky black substance will color the white sand in long streaks. The beach is bordered on one side by an impossibly thick forest. Entering this will make your life forfeit. At sunset and sunrise, a group of men dressed in the traditional clothing of different religions, most prominently Ashkenazi rabbis and Protestant ministers, will emerge from this forest and search the beach in silence, sifting through the sand as penance for their lives of deception. These figures will be so taken with their work that they will refuse to talk to you, only muttering, searching, searching, must keep searching, in their native tongue. Total darkness and proper sunlight burn these poor souls, so they must return to the forest. Otherwise, you will be alone on the beach. The water stretches impossibly far as the eye can see and further still. Wider and higher than the ocean and far stiller, this water will soothe you as you gaze upon it. But never let it lull you to sleep outside of the cottage. The men in the forest may find what they're searching for within you.
The antique shop. Somewhere in the northeast, although there are conflicting reports of its location, there is a small antique shop called Edson's Antiques and Importing. By the look of it, the store's been closed for decades, and for good reasons, not the least of which is that it opens onto an alley instead of onto the street. The merchandise inside can't be seen through the murky glass, but you can usually make out the window display. The display, despite the fact that no one really knows how to get into the building since the door's apparently rusted shut, changes from day to day. A stuffed bear's head might show up on Monday and be gone on Friday, replaced with a large antique samovar. The floor beneath this merchandise is covered with newspapers written in a language that no human being has ever spoken or read. And the pictures, well, let's just say you'd be amazed what you can fit in a samovar.
The Yellow Room. The exterior of the Teatro restaurant located in downtown Calgary. There is a wall in the basement of the restaurant called Teatro that is, despite all attempts to paint it another shade, a sickly shade of yellow. The owner conceals the wall by putting a mirror and a couch up against it. However, if you remove both the couch and the mirror, you'll discover the wall's pale yellow tone. This is of no consequence, however, if you have come unequipped. In order to make use of phenomena #9, you will need a small jar of hazelnut oil. Paint the outline of a door on the wall using the oil and then push. The door you've drawn will open inward into a room with walls made from stucco that's been painted the same sickly yellow as the wall you pass through. The room appears to be a Spartanly furnished study with furniture that puts you in mind of the South Sea Islands. On the desk you will find numerous papers written on the letterhead of the Dominion Bank, dated 1912. The papers predict every financial crash worldwide from 1912 until 20 years from now, when the predictions abruptly stop mid-sentence.
It should be noted that the predicted worldwide financial crashes are stated to occur from now, which would be 2009 when the keys were first posted, until 2029, 20 years later. Clearly, there is some relation between the South Sea Islands, more commonly referred to as Polynesia, Micronesia, and Melanesia, or the islands of the South Pacific, and the Dominion Bank. From the website for Teatro itself, Teatro Ristorante Italian for Theatre, Teatro is located on Olympic Plaza in Calgary's downtown theatre district, and is housed in the historic Dominion Bank building, built in 1911. Urban explorer and acolyte Chirate notes that he visited Teatro, but was unable to locate the Yellow Room. Signed, Dr. J.
The salon. There is a salon in Inglewood that seems perpetually frozen in the late 70s. The decor, the clothing of the hairdressers, even the equipment and magazines seem to come to a stop around 1978. If you go there during the day, the able stylists will be able to provide you with a deftly executed, if extremely dated, haircut for a price that is equally as deflated and out of place. However, if you return during the night, the salon's true area of expertise will become apparent. Entering the shop after sunset, even if you just exited it, will reveal a shocking transformation. As before, the store will be furnished and appointed as though it were the late 70s, but the decades between then and now will now be visible. Everything is aged and cracked, as if it had been left to the elements. Most shocking of all, the bottles of hair product and comb sanitizer have been replaced with row on row of murky jars containing vague, fleshy shapes. One of the stylists will remain, and she will offer you a shave and a haircut. Refuse the shave, lest you be left faceless. Instead, ask the stylist to pick something that suits you and sit in one of the chairs. She will cut off your face with a straight razor, but the process will be strangely bloodless, and you will feel nothing. Your vision will fade to black for a time, and when it returns, one of the faces from the jars will have been seamlessly transplanted. Your features will, in every respect, be identical to whoever the face belonged to before the stylist stole it, and over time, your body will change to resemble theirs as well. If you must vanish, this is how you do it. But be warned that you can never get your face back, and the friends and enemies of the face's owner will mistake you for them forever.
The church house. There is a house on Bow Crescent near Bow Cycle, which was once a small church. A few years ago, a man bought it and began extensive renovations that included an extension on the back, moving the door so that it sat in the center, and completely redoing the interior to remove any signs of its previous usage. During this process, the owner discovered that the house has a set of 16 plaques depicting the stations of the cross hidden behind the wallpaper. This is a problem, as there are only 14 stations. The owner removed them and placed them in the then unfinished home's basement. They remain there to this day, although the owner passed away earlier this year. If you wish to find them, arrange a viewing of the house with the real estate agent who the family of the previous owner has tasked with selling it. He will lie extensively about the house and its pedigree, and he will deny the existence of the stations in the basement. Wait until he has left you alone in the house's main room and sneak into the basement. When you find the 14 wooden plaques, you have until he comes down and finds you to place them in the correct order, substituting the 2 additional plaques into the story of the crucifixion. If you arrange them correctly, you will feel a wave of warmth cross over you, and your death will be followed by an earthly resurrection as reward for your pilgrimage.
The Green Room. There is an apartment building on 16th Street that is slightly wider on the outside than it is within. Go to this building in fall and ascend the staircase. You should find the door to the roof totally unlocked. If it is locked, leave at once. Someone is using the Green Room, and they likely don't want company. If the door opens, however, walk along the roof and count skylights. Eventually, you should find one that doesn't look into an apartment or hallway. Instead, it looks down into a dingy room with green metal walls. Break the skylight with a piece of debris and jump down. The room should be small and empty other than a metal desk and chair that have a distinctly institutional flavor. On the desk, you will find a folder full of papers. Take the folder rather than reading the papers on the spot. Breaking the skylight will have set off the alarm. Open the room's only door and step out. You will find yourself in your old high school, having just stepped out of the locker room. Leave. The folder contains documents and photos that describe in great detail your physical and mental health. They depict you as a patient in an institution, and they aren't far off.
The water of life. Throughout the city, there are little fenced-off buildings with the logo of the city's wastewater department on metal signs in front of them or on the door. The buildings are identified by the signs as being anything from water testing buildings to pumping substations, and by and large, this is what they are. However, about half a dozen of these buildings actually contain something else. 4 of these buildings are part of the city's actual water treatment system. They contain pumps that push the city's water through thin grills made from human bone. The calcium from these bone filters is why Calgary's water is so often hard. The filters clean the water not only of contaminants, but of the city's collective sin for its involvement in the oil industry. The other 2 are shacks that contain taps. One of these buildings is where the filters are installed when they're full. The water from the tap passes through all of the filters and emerges brackish and foul. Drinking it, however, is the only way to permanently purify the city's soul. The other building contains a tap that dispenses water so pure that any scars, mutations, cancers, or birth defects will vanish.
The bridal shop. So you're getting married? Fuck. I know you call it hand fastening, but that's bullshit. It's a wedding, even if you're not wearing white. Matt says you should try this place on 4th Southwest. The selection is shit and the staff is snotty, but they get all kinds of imported shit. Real weird Asian juju, and we all know that that's more important than how you look in some photos you're never going to look at again in your life, right? The secret is smell. Smell is really key for this kind of thing. If you haven't learned it already, you'll learn it soon. Smell tells you what kind of shit has been worked over on what you're about to wear. Avoid anything herbal. I know you dykes are wild about herbs and poultices and spices and all that shit, but that's just window dressing. No real powerful stuff is unrefined like that, especially the Asian imports. What you have in that scenario is some factory worker who's trying to pull a fast one by rubbing the thread with ginseng or something. If I were you, I'd pick something that smells like fish. Fish means Dagon, god of agriculture, which means prosperity for the Canaanites and happiness for the Buddhists. Sure, it stinks, but I've smelled that vegan shit you people eat. You have no room to complain.
The hi-fi. There is an apartment in the southeast expressly rented to house a vintage, mint-condition 70s hi-fi set. The set is kept in the otherwise bare living room in a corner. The room is so bare that it lacks even a bulb in the ceiling. The walls are yellowed with nicotine and age, and the carpet is a little moldy around the edges. Cleaning the room, however, is not an option. There are always at least 2 acolytes in residence in the apartment. One sleeps while the other sits or stands along in the bar room, listening to the city's only number station. Unlike other number stations, this one can only be picked up by the hi-fi, and it is the only station the hi-fi can pick up. It comes in crystal clear no matter what is going on, although there is rarely anything to hear. If you are ever tapped to take over the onerous duty of listening, you will have to know what to listen for. The station consists of a single voice repeating the following phrase: 999, beat, 9999, over and over again. The voice, which has been variously described as a small boy's, an old woman's, a baritone opera singer's, and a gravelly rasp, reads the phrase ceaselessly without stopping for breath. Sometimes, though, a single number in a single repetition of the phrase is different. When this happens, walk, don't run, walk into the hall closet. You will find a rotary telephone with the receiver off the hook. Lift it and repeat the phrase, then wake your partner and begin to pray.
The vacant apartment, downtown. In the mess of construction and demolition, rooms are sometimes left behind or else formed piecemeal out of extra walls or ignorantly enclosed spaces. It's said that a great many of them are connected, forming a secret in-between city, but the largest group that verifiably exists is a cluster of 6 rooms. Unfortunately, the location of these rooms appears to be transitory, with the same 6 chambers stumbled across by urbex enthusiasts and acolytes throughout the city. Entering this vacant apartment proves difficult because of its movement, but it can easily be spotted with patience. A bleached wooden door with a broken lock will appear from time to time in almost any basement or closet in any downtown building. When you pass through the door, you will find yourself in a Spartan, unfurnished space. Every room, in fact every wall, seems to come from a different building or decade. The room is safe and warm, a haven that appears when you need it most. The walls, floor, and ceiling are splattered with perpetually warm, wet blood, and occasionally other signs of violence can be found. Never try to break into the unfurnished apartment, never try to move in permanently, and never ever fall asleep. Law of the clinic. Ride the 305 for exactly 6 stops. Where you get off doesn't matter. Then walk to the nearest medical clinic and ask the receptionist if you can see the on-call doctor. You'll be told that you can't. Ask for the other on-call doctor. Her face will go white as a sheet and she'll tell you to go to exam room 3. Wait there until the physician shows up, which could be anywhere from less than a minute to 6 hours. When he does show up, he'll be old, leathery skin, coal-black eyes, and the medical paraphernalia of a bygone day. He'll begin the examination without exchanging pleasantries or asking you what's wrong. After the exam, he'll consult your file and tell you his prognosis. If you're healthy, you won't be when you leave the clinic. Ebola, rubella, SARS, he'll pick something nasty for wasting his time. You won't die of whatever he gives you. Instead, you'll be damned to wander the earth spreading it. If you're ill, however, he'll tell you it will clear up on its own by the end of the week. It will, as will any chronic pain or other long-term conditions. From that day on, no other doctor in the city will be willing to see you or even make eye contact.
The thrift store. There is a thrift store in the northwest with a shuttered door. The exterior walls are covered in moldy wooden shingles, and the window display is aged to the point of decomposition. It is not, despite all appearances, closed. Patrons occasionally enter through the side door and leave, although they rarely find anything of interest. They also rarely find the proprietor, who never responds to the bell located on the counter. The bell does arouse his attention, however, so it would be in your best interest not to ring it. Instead, simply browse for a time. If you are as well versed in the secret history as you should be by now, objects of interest and historical significance although no real power, will catch your eye. Many of them are belongings of other phenomena, including empty jars that used to house the tobacconist's preparations, and a headset identical to the one in Viscount Bennet. Do not take any of these, or their original owners will return to collect them. The thrift store is a safe location to dispose of any refuse you collect over the course of your journey, but be warned that you can only dispose of small objects and never anything truly dangerous to anything other than kayfabe.
The photographs. It is possible, although only by sheer luck, to come into possession of a set of photographs that depict your future. Travel to any 1-hour photo developer in the city and give the clerk a blank roll of Kodak film to develop. In the next hour, use an empty camera to take as many photographs of yourself or your home as possible. When you return to the store, the clerk will either chastise you for handing over the empty film and wasting his time, or, ashen-faced, hand you a set of photographs. The cause of the clerk's discomfort will soon become clear. At least half of the photographs will depict you as you will look after your death, decomposing in whatever pose you were in when you snapped the corresponding shot. The others will show how you age, including clothing, scars, piercing, and other artificial markings. The background will be wherever you shot the pictures with your empty camera, but in each shot, the background will appear to be rendered with a slightly more antiquated photo process, working back from crystal clarity to sepia.
The television channel. If you steal cable in Cranston, a planned community in the southeast, you will find that rather than being blank and vacant, Channel 1 is given over to a foreign and unfamiliar test card and mumbled voices in a language that sounds Slavic but is utterly unrecognizable. In order to discover more, you must possess an old PL television. Adjust the balances of color and contrast on your set, both at the same time, and wait for the test card to fade. Once you strike the right balance, the test card will be replaced by the image of a man sitting behind a desk. Though he and his companion will seem to be aware that you are watching them, they will never address you directly. Never watch this channel anywhere secure or safe, as it offers another avenue of entry. Watch the channel until the scene cuts away from the two men and into a series of grotesque clips, no longer than 3 seconds in length. These are not all original. Records kept by Eddie DK indicate that at least 60 of the 143 clips are sampled from various films and snuff tapes. The surreal and visceral imagery will burn itself into your brain indelibly, but you will find in the morning that with it has come a master's knowledge of the fine art of mutilation and torture. This must be used sparingly, for the knowledge has brought with it a great pleasure at its exercise. You will, however, always be able to recognize their handiwork, even if you will find yourself admiring it.
The remote. There is a remote control that is sometimes found in pawn shops, hotel rooms, second-hand electronics stores, and the like. It is small, about 3 inches by an inch old, and the buttons are made of metal. They are also unmarked. The remote works on any television set regardless of age or brand, but all the television shows are strange and dated. If they had television in 1901, this is what the programs it played would look like. Like old films, they're interspersed with cards transcribing dialogue and providing context. Despite this, the footage appears documentary in nature, focusing on major events. As you continue watching, the shows will gradually move forward in years, depicting more events. Around 1920, these will start to become unfamiliar. Occasionally, the names or places will be wrong. By 1935, with a few exceptions, they will be utterly unrecognizable. The footage ends in 1948 with a strange variation of the Nazi German flag blowing in the wind atop a pile of rubble in a desolate wasteland.
The street. There's a street in the increasingly gentrified community Bones that is completely unlike the rest of the district. A stone's throw from post-war subsidized housing, you find a street from which little to none of the rest of the city is visible. The street is much rougher and bumpier than any other road in the city. While the city acknowledges the road exists, they classify it as a country lane despite the fact that the rest of the district is zoned as inner city. The street's potholes make driving treacherous, so park your car at the mouth of the street and walk. While the rest of Bonus is mostly made of old working-class homes, the street is home to some of the largest, nicest houses in the city. All of them are at least 30 years old, and none of them are cookie-cutter McMansions. The street itself is rural, with old-fashioned wooden power lines and lots of trees. It's like something Norman Rockwell would have painted. But don't let your guard down for a second. At the end of the street, you'll discover a cul-de-sac made up of slightly newer, cheaper houses. Until early last year, at any one time, one of the houses would be uninhabited other than the dead body of a student from nearby Bonus High in the garage, and a trio of silent, shell-shocked-looking men. The bodies were sacrifices to the men, who are the ghosts of the soldiers who were given lots on the street by the government after the First World War. Until the sacrifices were disrupted by the CVS, they ensured the city's prosperity and the street's seclusion.
The library. The Bonus Public Library is smaller than the Max, that's at the end of the same strip mall, and is one of the least utilized in the city. Regardless, the public library remains open and is used, unofficially, as a dumping ground for problematic books. For the most part, these are books with complaints against them for explicit content or politically incorrect material. However, if you ask the librarian to see the basement and she complies, you'll discover books that are problematic for different reasons. To get into the basement, you need a public library card, no overdue notices against you, and to come on Saturday evening when the librarian in charge of the basement is on duty. If you meet all these conditions, you'll be led through a trapdoor hidden beneath a small rug and down a staircase. At the bottom, you will realize that the entire room is packed so full of books that there is little room to stand. There are bookshelves on every wall, built into the staircase, and even into the floor. The librarian will not let you take any of the books in the floor out. However, the walls are fair game. The eastern wall is the most important, as it contains the history, travel, and biography sections. Everything you learned in school is a lie, and the basement is where they keep the truth.
The butcher shop. There's a butcher shop up in Stadium that is something of an institution in Calgary. The store sells all kinds of meat, cheese, frozen goods, even pizzas and ice cream. And they sell pies. The pies are not good. The crust is too thick and greasy. The meat is too tough. The gravy is thick and slimy. But despite this, they can still be of use. Buy 4 of them and leave the shop, then walk around and back. There you will find what appears to be a homeless man. Will offer him one of the pies. He will smile, showing his filed teeth, and begin to eat. The homeless man was one of them, or he was once. He doesn't look like them. His hair is long, curled, and ratty. His skin is a pale olive. His clothing is patchwork and piecemeal, and he stinks like the grave. After finishing the pie, ask him where they came from. His reply will be, across the sea of dreams. Offer him the second pie and ask where is it they're going. He will say, to the house on the hill. Pause here. Take a deep breath. Relax. Offer him the third pie and ask him whose house it is. And then he will tell you, the last pie is for you. Do not eat it. Instead, crack it open. In amongst the gravy, you will find a strip of paper. On it will be printed an address. The address will be an old house which contains the ark they rode to get here. Do not enter it, for you may never return.
The record store. At 16th and 14th, there's a record store specializing in old vinyl. Upstairs, the store has a variety of vintage hi-fi equipment on display and a handful of more popular records. Walk around the upper area of the store until 5 minutes before closing, and then descend the rickety steps at the back. The stairs lead into the basement, where the owner keeps the more valuable albums and paraphernalia under lock and key. Across the hallway from this room is another, with a selection of lesser works. Failed novelty albums, family bands that never caught on. And in the corner of this room, on the floor, is the box. The box is full to the brim with old LPs. The album art for all of the albums is minimalist, just a human face on a black background. After leafing through this box for a time, it's likely you'll find a few faces you recognize. You might even find your own. The owner won't allow you to purchase any of these records, claiming that he's merely holding on to them for a friend. But if you remain in the store after hours, he'll allow you to put one of the records on one of his players and listen with a headset. You will hear with crystal clarity the thoughts of whoever's face is on the record at the moment while you're listening.
The soup kitchen. The soup kitchen downtown has been open for years, although it's received support from different charities and agencies. Most recently, it's been attached to cups in the mustard seed, but it's always invariably dropped within 6 months. Despite this, the door never closes, and it never has any trouble holding on to volunteers or its location. Go to the soup kitchen on a Tuesday afternoon and get a cup of soup. The broth will be cheap with hard water and lumps of powdered stock, but drink it anyways. You'll need the protein. After drinking the broth, leave the soup kitchen and walk down the alley next to it. After a moment's searching, you should locate a milk crate that should give you enough of a boost to reach the fire escape on the building that houses the soup kitchen. Climb the ladder and then walk to the top of the fire escape. Regardless of the weather, the top floor window will be open. Climb inside, but leave behind anything that might be construed as a weapon. The volunteers are jumpy. The top floor will be a recreation, almost down to the last detail of the soup kitchen itself. The most important differences will be that the volunteers behind the counter have their mouths stitched shut, and that the patrons are noticeably better dressed than the homeless and impoverished on the ground floor. The soup they ladle out here is a broth made from the tears of a captive angel lashed to the wall in the building's basement 70 years ago, over the protestations of William Aberhart. Drinking it will grant you youth until the end of your days, but the gates of heaven will forever be closed to you.
The McKimmey Library. McKimmey Library at the University of Calgary is supposedly obsolete and definitely of little interest to the scholar of the obscure. Nevertheless, as a building on the borderline, near its replacement, it teeters on the precipice between our Calgary and its shadows. As the library prepares to give way to the new Taylor Family Library, its last sighs echo throughout the structure. Reality is soft here, soft and pliable and easy to push through. Like other borderlands, it is dangerous for precisely this reason. Dangerous, but useful. Walk up and down the building staircases until the lights begin to dim and color begins to drain from your field of view. After the color has completely drained, exit the staircase. You'll find yourself in one of the other libraries, in one of the other cities. The books will be altered, some subtly and others more overtly, and all will contain secrets that have slipped in around the edges. Beware the librarians, however. They prize silence, and they punish overdue books with a staggering ferocity.
The Hope Chest. A hope chest is a small box or trunk given to young girls. The idea is that over the course of their lives, they collect linens, baby things, crockery, and pieces of household decor to take with them when they get married. It's sort of a poor man's dowry. I remember when my sister got hers. But I'm wondering, you want to know about the hope chest in the old house on the hill, up by the river, but you're too shy to ask me. Don't want to be on the hook for another favor? That's okay, boy. I like you. The hope chest measures about 16 inches by 24 inches by 12 inches and is made from cedar, as was the custom at the time. The order was for an Art Deco chest. This was the 20s, you understand, before the house was even built. The order was furnished promptly, and I added to the chest all the objects that the customer ordered. Bottles of unguents, potent herbs, and allspice. He requested that it be sewn into the cloth lining, which I of course indulged. I had no idea of knowing who they were at the time. We thought they were just post-war immigrants. Insofar as I know, he never opened the hope chest. It's a sort of a safety, you see. The second it opens, everything inside is let out, and, well, after this many decades of fermentation, well, you know what they say about mutually assured destruction? I'm pretty sure that they could show them a thing or two about assured destruction. Sincerely, Edward Ramsay, DCI, Sets.
Kitsch on Edmonton Trail. There is a diner of the type that was trendy about 10 years ago. You know, the kind that puts muesli in everything and has a DVD of old cartoons running on a wood-paneled television. The walls, like all diners of this type, are practically dripping with kitsch, mostly 50s and 60s stuff, although there are some old Lohengrin postcards and the like. What makes this diner unique is that every single piece of kitchen side was used in some way to kill someone. There is not a single object in that room which has not been in some way used for an act of violence. The postcards were love letters left out to inflame the rage of a jealous spouse. The broken clock above the counter was used to brain a sewage worker in the late 70s. Even the decorative infomercial knife set was once used in the torture, murder, and mutilation of a local gang member. What's more, if these objects are placed atop the DVD player hooked up to the TV near the entrance, the picture on the changes to the murder through the eyes of the victim. This has made the diner popular amongst local Satanists and snuff fetishists who view the murders after hours. However, the diner ran through its stock of deadly kitsch last summer and has since taken to commissioning new killings to decorate the walls.
The tattoo parlor. Go to any tattoo parlor in the city of Calgary and make a point of entering through the back door. Tell the proprietor that you need a tattoo and tell him to hat the regular ink won't do. Ask him for what he keeps in the basement. Even if the building doesn't have a basement, even if the tattoo parlor is already in the basement, he will lead you to a metal door in the western wall and open it. The stairway beyond it is dark, and it will get darker when he closes the door behind you. Climb down the stairs slowly. You will find yourself in what appears to be a filthy, unlit copy of the room upstairs. Wait patiently for the owner to come out of the back. He will be a gaunt man with no eyes. Tell him you want a tattoo and tell him the regular ink won't do. He'll smile and silently lead you into the workroom. There, he will invite you to take a seat, and then he'll begin to give you your tattoo. When you leave, your tattoo will be whatever you asked for, simple and mundane. However, within a week it will become infected, and boils will sprout on your skin in a strange, disturbing shape. Sketch this shape on a piece of paper. It's your piece of the puzzle, and when the rest of your Atman arrives, you'll need to piece it together.